All right, quick note about this episode of the Press Box Podcast before we get into it. This was recorded a few weeks ago, so obviously just to update everybody, the CBA, NFL CBA was signed a couple days ago by the players and the owners, so they have a new 10-year agreement, because I know we discussed that. And also, we discussed the Astros cheating scandal, which nothing's really new has changed there, but that's obviously taken a backseat to the season being postponed. But obviously we didn't touch on that at the time of the episode because it hadn't happened yet. Just a few notes there. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Enjoy. It's time for episode 39 of the Press Box Podcast today, and today we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to start with the Astros cheating scandal that's the big news in Major League Baseball these days, right as spring training is about to get started. We'll go over our thoughts on that, what we think the commissioner messed up on, what we thought he got right, if anything. And after that, we're going to talk a little bit of NFL. The collective bargaining agreement is in the news lately. Some changes to the schedule and the playoff system are afoot, or being proposed by the league anyway. And we'll break that down a little bit as well. And then as well at the end, just kind of kick it back and forth. Talk maybe a little bit of XFL, a little bit of things here and there before we wrap up. So without further ado, it's time for episode 39 of the Press Box Podcast. Here we go.
Okay, so today we're going to start by talking about the Astros sign stealing scandal. Obviously, everybody knows the backstory. The Astros were accused of stealing signs as early as 2017 and possibly through the 2018 and even through last year, the 2019 season. Commissioner Rob Manfred did an investigation. They found that they had an elaborate system of stealing signs, which included electronic usage. This all kind of broke about a month ago, maybe just a little bit more. And the commissioner of baseball suspended the manager, is AJ Hinch, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, AJ Hinch and Jeff Ludlow, the general manager.
Right.
Am I right? Okay. Both those guys were suspended for a year. There was no action taken against any of the players. The Astros were fined, I think, $5 million. Which supposedly was the most that the commissioner was allowed to fine them. And he took away their first and second round draft choices in this year and in 2021. Of course, right after that, within a day, the Astros fired AJ Hinch and Jeff Ludlow, both of those guys. But I think the sticking point that we'll start on here is that obviously the outlash or the backlash against the Astros have come from all angles, from most other players in the league, but mostly from fans. And I think the key aspect behind that backlash has been that there was no punishment of the players. So let's start our discussion there.
Yeah, that was definitely a misstep by the commissioner not to punish the players, for a lot of reasons. But one, it doesn't deter any future cheating, because the players are the ones cheating because they're the ones playing. They're the ones that benefit from it. So, and I'm not saying it's going to happen in the same way, because obviously this was exposed by the Astros. But if a team finds a new or different way to cheat, and the players are, kind of discussing it amongst themselves, there's no downside. So maybe the manager gets fired, or suspended and then ultimately fired. Maybe the GM gets in trouble. Maybe some other staff members, but the players really don't care about that.
Right.
So they can cheat, they can put up their numbers and win their World Series, and then just kind of essentially refuse to talk about it afterwards, like the Astros are doing, and the team will get a little reprimanded and they'll move on their way. So, that's the biggest reason why players should have been punished. And the second is, if they want to go and punish these players almost retroactively for the steroid era and all that, that's not as bad as this cheating scandal. So, as far as affecting the game and things like that. It's in. We'll get into Pete Rose in a second too, but those are all I guess scandals, whatever you want to call them, in baseball that have been handled differently. Of course, there's been a different commissioner each time, but there should be some sort of consistency.
Well, I guess this opens up. There's a lot of things to discuss here. I mean, supposedly the reason that Manfred did not take any action against the players is when they opened this investigation back in the fall, they wanted to obviously talk to the players. They wanted to actually interview the Astro players. The Major League Baseball Players Association did not allow that without the commissioner granting them immunity. All right. Otherwise, what we would have had was a bunch of players who gave the same answers that you got when they had the infamous steroid users testifying before Congress. I don't remember, I don't recall, I wasn't there. You wouldn't get any answers. Okay. So that's what happened. Now the question then is, should the commissioner have granted that immunity? Well, if he wouldn't have, they wouldn't have gotten the answers. But I think he could have gotten answers from a lot of other areas if they wanted to dig deep enough.
Right.
All right. So that's one issue. Second issue becomes, this is cheating. This is really. I mean, let me step back. The second issue is the Astros on their first day of reporting to spring training decided to have a press conference to clear the air and make a statement. And the owner comes out and says that he did not think that it changed the outcome. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, if a professional hitter knows what pitch is coming, the chances go up incrementally that he's going to be able to hit that pitch and hit it hard. So you can't tell me that it didn't change the outcome. All right. So you have that going on. Then the other thing you've got going on, which a lot of people have called for, is do you take the Astros title away in 2017? Because so many things went on that year, right? I mean, they played the Dodgers. Kershaw had his usual bad postseason, but was that because they knew what pitch was coming or because he wasn't pitching? All right. Well, you look at Darvish. Darvish had 2 outings against the Astros. Both of them he was lit up.
Yeah.
Well, the poor guy, I mean, initially you thought the guy's no good, but maybe they knew what pitches were coming. Right. I mean, there's so many issues here to discuss that I don't think we're done with this. And then to top it all off, yesterday in the Astros' first preseason game against the Nationals, the fans were all over them. I mean, it was. In fact, I read a story where some of the National fans came in with signs, and those signs were taken away from them. So you're going to have this going on in ballpark after ballpark after ballpark this year. And it's never going to end until they come down hard and execute the type of punishment that is necessary.
Yeah, I have zero sympathy for the Astros and their fan base. I mean, you touched on one thing you said. You said like part one of this or something. They could have questioned the players if they granted the players immunity, and you're saying that maybe they should have because they would have gotten a lot of answers out of them.
No.
They did.
That's not what I said. They were told. The commissioner was told by the Players Association that if you want to interview the players, you have to give them immunity.
Right, so you can't do anything after you interview them.
Right, exactly, right.
Okay.
They can say anything. They can say, yeah, I cheated, I stole signs, and you can't do a thing to them, okay? Well, if he wouldn't have given them immunity, he could have still interviewed them.
I understand that. They would have given them, okay, so what are you saying?
I'm saying that
Did he interview them?
He should have not given them immunity and interviewed them, and if he got those pat answers that didn't give him any answers, go and dig deeper. Talk to clubhouse managers, talk to other teams, talk to video people. I mean, whatever. You could dig deep enough to find the answers and still have in your back pocket the card to play that says, hey, I'm going to suspend these players. Because what have you accomplished in this? I mean,
he chose not to interview them at all, correct?
No, he did interview them, but he gave them the immunity.
Oh, he did give them the immunity.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, no, that's good.
Yeah, that's how he got the answers.
So what are you going to say, what they accomplished in this?
They accomplished nothing. I mean, yeah, they found out that there was going on, but the people who did it are scot-free. They're still playing. And
so do we as the public have the answers to these questions he asked them? Like, see, now Tuve get up there and was like, yeah, I wore a buzzer, that's why I didn't want to rip my shirt off. Did we have the answers or what?
That's a whole other issue. There's rumors that, and there's video that would back this up, that the Astros players even went as far as wearing buzzers under their jerseys that would tell them what pitch was coming.
Right, but my point is, like, do we know what they said? Do we know what the players said during these interviews?
I'm sure we do. I mean, he found out that it was true, that there was cheating going on. And they gave him the system that they were using.
All the players gave him the system. And he interviewed all like the main guys that supposedly cheated.
I assume he did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he didn't question them about this other stuff because that came out later about the buzzers and stuff.
Yeah. His answer to the buzzer thing was, quote, we conducted a thorough investigation and found no information that would lead us to believe that was happening. but we don't know if that's the truth.
We don't know if he asked the players about it.
We don't know. Right. We don't know if they see. My feeling on this, and you guys can weigh in, is that the commissioner, even though he's talking a good game, really didn't want to go too far in this thing because the farther you would dig on this thing, you could find out a lot of stuff.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, back to you said, what did they accomplish? If you're not going to suspend the players, he should have never even brought this up.
Right.
Like, I know he didn't. He's not the one who brought it up, but the guy for the A's now was the quote unquote whistleblower. But he should have just gone into the investigation. Said, yeah, we found nothing, and then quietly told the Astros, "Hey, quit doing this. Otherwise, we're gonna suspend you guys."
Well, but
that'd have been better for baseball's image than this.
All right, but correct me.
They'd be lying if he maybe he didn't
lying
lie
now.
at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe not. That we don't know. Right?
But correct me if I'm wrong. But wasn't there some question about them doing this a couple years ago? And didn't he go to them and tell them to stop doing it, and they didn't stop?
I don't remember that.
I don't know. But and then the commissioner makes himself look like a doofus by coming out when all this was going on a couple weeks ago about you need to take their title away. He said no. He goes, we can't change what's already happened, and the trophy is just a piece of metal. Boy, that really caused a firestorm because all the play. I mean, yeah, he said that, and they went after him left and right, and he actually came out and apologized. They said, well, I shouldn't have said it was just a piece of metal. You know, I mean. He's making himself look like an idiot.
The commissioner called his own league's championship trophy a piece of metal.
Right.
I know what he means though. Like I'm not in favor of taking back their championship either because, I mean, first of all, we don't know 100% everything that went into it. Like they won it on the field. Like there's no denying that. I mean, you can't just go back and give it to the Dodgers because we don't know how things would have played out. Had they definitely not been cheating or whatever.
Could you just vacate? Like, no one has a World Series title in the strike year, right? Just say there's no title that year.
Right.
Well, then he's going to go to everybody's houses and take their rings. And...
No. But just like in the record books of baseball, the Astros did not win a title that year. You know what I'm saying? They keep the rings.
I guess, but still, like, if you're a player, you don't really care. Like, that's not... You know what I mean?
Okay, I'm not saying the players do care. I'm not saying he's going to do that to get back to the players. I'm just saying for the sanctity of the sport.
Wait a minute. Nathan brings up a good point, okay? And you do as well. Obviously, you can't go to their houses and take their rings away. But let's follow me here. These guys like Correa, they're in their 20s, right? All right, let's say 20 years from now, they're retired, and they're wearing their Astros rings for their championship. And somebody says, what is that? Oh, it's a World Series ring. Astros 2000. Oh, those are you the guys that cheated, right? They vacated that time. I mean, the stigma is going to be there. All right, whether you've got the ring or not. So I think Nathan makes a good point. Something needs to be done, whether it's censure them, whether it's put an asterisk by it, whether it's vacated, whatever.
Look, here's the thing. If you do what I said, the players might not care, which is fine. And they know they have their rings. In their minds, they won. Great. It's not to, like, get back at them or to, like, take their stuff away. It's just to say, like, in the record books. And if you're talking about, like, 10 years from now, if the Astros win a legitimate one, and you're talking about titles, this is the Astros like fifth. Well, in the record books, they've only how many have they won outside of these?
One. They've only won one.
Okay. So if they win one in the future, then you have to say this is their first title.
Right.
Like just in the history books of baseball, it goes down as being their first title after this. Is my point.
Right. Right.
I don't know.
No,
just a thought.
I don't disagree with that. I think something. I mean, put yourself in the position of the Dodgers. Put yourself in the position of the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees, they played a 7-game series with them in the ALCS that year, all right? Altuve hit a walk-off home run to win the series. Well, if he knew what pitch was coming, right, that's what caused the Yankees not to get to the World Series. So you could dig this thing deeper, deeper, and deeper that would lead you to believe that maybe they should have even gotten to that level of the playoffs.
Who says, maybe this has come out, I don't know as much about this as you all do, who says they weren't using the system throughout the 162 games? They might not have even made the playoffs.
Right. That's exactly right.
Well, obviously were. Yeah.
And did any of these guys win MVP or anything during this time? Altuve win the league
Good
MVP?
question. Did one of them win the MVP? I think they did, didn't they?
One of them had to.
Bregman won it 1 year, didn't he?
Bregman won it last year, didn't he?
Bregman?
I'm not sure if Altuve or...
Bellinger won it last year.
Bellinger won it last year. Brinkman...
Well...
Anyway, I think one of them might have won the MVP.
Of the league. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if that was the case, I would have maybe approached that the same way as you approached the title. Vacated, no MVP that year.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, though, I feel like you could probably, if you wanted to take away the MVP, you could give it to the number 2 guy who was voted probably, because it's not, you don't play for that. It's just like percentage of what they did. You can probably just give it to the next guy.
Right. Well, and also the commissioner of baseball needs to go kiss the rear ends of the Washington Nationals, because had the Astros won the title last year and won 2 of the last 3, it would have really been a firestorm.
And how good are the Nationals to overcome the fact that they knew what pitch was coming?
Yeah.
How good of a game? You know who comes out of this looking really good is what's his name? The guy, the pitcher for Strasburg.
Yeah.
He pitched dominant Game 6, right?
Yeah.
And he pitched dominant Game 6, and they knew what pitches he was throwing.
Right. Exactly.
Makes him look really good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah, no,
he probably would have got even more money if this would come out before he had his contract thing.
Well,
I would say, listen, I shut him down, and they knew what pitch was coming. Imagine they knew what pitch was coming. What I would have done.
And here's another thing. There's another thing that's gonna be a lasting impact of this thing is Pete Rose has already come out and petitioned for reinstatement because his point, which I agree with 100%, is hey, all I did was bet on my own team to win. And I've been banned for life and for the Hall of Fame. These guys cheated. These guys cheated in the integrity of the game. No. And, you're going to have all these things come up now. And look at the steroid thing. Those guys have a case, too. Hey, I took steroids, but it was only to help myself, okay? I didn't steal somebody else's signs. I didn't cheat in the integrity of the game itself. So, I mean, this thing's not going away, no matter how much Manfred wants it to go away.
The whole steroid thing, too, like I don't know how it all works, but let's say a deep fly ball is turned into a home run because you take steroids, you have a little more power or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's like kind of few and far between them, right? You're not like ruining a pitcher's reputation on that. That's every now and then you might squeak out another home run, but half the home runs these guys hit were like 510-foot bombs, so that's a home run no matter what, right?
Right.
But if you know what pitch is coming every time they throw you the pitch, and you're dominating, you're hitting, you're going to ruin that pitch. Maybe that pitcher doesn't get. Maybe he gets let go next year because he wasn't pitching, but you're hurting other people's career.
Well, I said
that's
Yu
why
Darvish.
The players are mad.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, look at Yu Darvish. I mean, the guy had 2 starts against the Astros in the World Series that year, 17, and they bombed him both times. He even came out and said, "Hey, I didn't pitch great," and they told him in that series that he was tipping his pitches. He said, "Hey, was I tipping my pitches, or did they know which pitch was coming?"
That's ridiculous.
Okay.
There's so many things like the whistle thing. With there's video of one, like broadcast, I guess, video of one of the games where you can hear different types of whistles before the pitch, and like right after them, they're like hitting bombs and like driving and runs. It's ridiculous.
No, it's totally ridiculous, and I just think that I mean it's going to get worse. I mean, no matter where they go, it's going to get
Pete
worse.
Rose thing. Who would you all, both as a fan and a player of a team, would you rather have the opposing team knowing what pitches that your team's throwing and winning that way? Would you rather have the other team's manager betting on his own team? I don't care if he bets on his own team.
Yeah. I don't even care if a guy's taking steroids, to be honest with you.
That too. So that's ridiculous. I think, so yeah, free Pete Rose, reinstated. Yeah. But I think too is, I think that was like, when did they give him the lifetime ban? What year was it?
89.
That was like, I feel like that was a different time. I feel like if, I don't want to throw any like real player under the bus, but I feel like if some great player would have retired like 5 years ago and he's a manager now and he gets caught the same thing, I don't think they would do the same thing again. Probably I feel like it was a different era. Like in the 80s, it was probably like, it was really scandalous. Oh, nowadays I feel like people would take it a little more like understandable. I don't know.
The thing I never understood is if you're him and you're gambling on your own, even if it's on your own team, you shouldn't be allowed to manage or coach in baseball again.
Right.
Because you never really know what he's going to do or what he did or whatever.
I'm fine with that.
Well, Joseph made a good point a couple weeks ago. Is they need to take his Hall of Fame ban away, but not let him be involved in baseball.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Is he officially banned from it, or the ballot, or the voters just not want to vote him in?
No. When you're banned from baseball, your name is not eligible to be put on the ballot.
Do you think if next year he was put on the ballot, he would be voted in?
I think so.
You think so?
What do you think?
I don't think
so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Bonds' name's on the ballot. They're not voting him in.
Yeah, but
think
that's a different issue. I mean, it's a little.
You think all these guys would jump at the chance to vote him in if he was just on the ballot? That's what you're telling me.
Well, their argument against Bonds is, or any of these guys, is like them taking the steroid, like put them in the position to be in the Hall of Fame, so they wouldn't deserve it without the steroids.
Oh, so this was something.
Pete Rose is.
He did it when he was out of baseball, out of playing.
He was a player manager / manager.
But his career was over, more or less.
Right. But it didn't have any effect on how he played. He just I think my team's going to win. Here's the money on it.
I got you. So that's why you think they would vote him in immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
no, I agree with you.
Well, but here's another thing. I mean, people get all excited about the Pete Rose thing. Okay, which I have to admit, when early on I was against Pete Rose being in the Hall of Fame, but I've changed now. But if betting on your sport is such a big deal, why did they put an NFL franchise in Las Vegas? I mean, it's like they don't really care about it either.
I've never actually thought about that. Can you imagine? Players are going to start betting on.
I mean, come on. These guys are going to be in Las Vegas, living in Las Vegas.
Or visiting teams. Visiting comes into Vegas the night before a game. He's not going to go place a bet on himself for his team.
Exactly.
This is going to be. I never thought of that.
They can't do it themselves. They'll have to get someone.
No, I know, but still, that's a ridiculous argument.
James,
the gambling thing. I know you don't. You definitely don't want players betting on their sport. That's. Because obviously you could get into a very difficult situation with that. But it's not going to stop, and I don't think they really care about it.
If you really cared about it, why would you put a franchise in the betting capital of the world?
Right.
Or the League of America.
Right.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's a good point.
But I think the Astros thing, I mean, it's not going to go away, and they're going to have to punish these guys. That's the only way it's going to stop.
And another thing that baseball's done after the Pete Rose thing is they've established that they have this lifetime ban in their back pocket. They've used it before.
Right.
It's like the Death Star. They blew up a plant. People know that's the thing. If you don't break that out again for something like this, what do you use that for ever?
Right.
I feel like this is grounds to start suspending people from life for life.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
If that's the thing you have. I can understand, like, if somebody were to bring it up and Pete Rose never happened, it'd be like, suspend for life, come on. Like, what? But they've used it before. It's the thing they have. Or they can do.
Here's another viewpoint that...
I'd like to hear one thing you'd use that for, if not this. Think about it, Joseph. Go.
Here's another viewpoint that I don't think many people today in our society would go along with. But, where is the responsibility for someone to have enough integrity to stop this? And what I mean by that, it was going on for 3 years, okay? Was there not anybody in that organization, and a lot of them knew about it. All the players knew about it. Mike Fears knew about it.
Who?
The whistleblower. Oh. They all knew about it, right? Nobody had enough integrity to come out and say, hey guys, we need to stop this, okay? I mean, the manager especially, I don't have any problem with him being fired because he should have come out and said, that's it. We're taking these garbage cans out of here. We're taking that video machine out of here. We're going to stop it. Okay. But they didn't do it. So that's another reason why they should be punished. Because not only did they cheat, but they cheated for 3 years and there was no remorse about it. I mean, there was no one had the integrity to stop it.
And they would have cheated this year if it never came out.
That's exactly right. So, I mean, that's even more of a reason for them to punish these guys in some capacity.
Who do you think is most like at fault? The players, the manager,
that's
the
a
owner?
Good question.
I think players, because they did it, but it's really the manager's job to curtail that. Cause
right.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I think.
Yeah, but what do you think the owner? Did he say he knew?
I think
I don't think the owner knows.
I kind of feel bad for the owner. I don't even think he knew what was going on.
Exactly.
Probably not.
He's never in the dugout. He's probably never in the clubhouse.
Probably not.
He's not even at every game necessarily.
But I don't feel that bad for him because his franchise now has a black eye, but he doesn't. No one says like,
he's got to deal with it. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but no one thinks that he's like a bad owner now. Like I don't think.
Well, and that I mean.
And it's affecting other teams too. Alex Cora goes and how about Alex Cora? 2017, he's the bench coach for the Astros. 2018, he goes to the Red Sox and they win 108 games.
And win the World Series.
Right, and win the World Series. So he obviously.
So he won 2 World Series by cheating.
Right. So he resigned, which was
he's out. He's done. He'll never get another job in baseball.
And then you've got Carlos Beltran, who played on the 2017 team, and then resigned as manager of the Mets just because he was affiliated with all this.
And he would have been fired. And it also came out, I heard, that Beltran, the investigation showed that he was one of the key figures in this cheating.
So was Cora.
Yeah, both of them.
I mean, Cora's the bench coach at the time.
Yeah, and Beltran was playing, right.
Yes, you said they brought that to their next teams. Well, have they done any questioning of the Red Sox team in the year?
That investigation is, I think, ongoing, isn't it? They're going to announce those penalties here pretty soon.
So that's a thing they've already begun, though.
Yeah.
And how about he just became? Did he ever actually manage as the Mets, or he just was named?
He was named Mets manager on November 1st, and he resigned back in January because the Mets would probably fire him anyway. It was a mutual thing. They probably said, "Look, you need to resign."
Well, I never knew that the manager granted the players immunity already. So I guess you can't do anything now if you grant them immunity.
Yeah, you can't do anything right.
Well, the commissioner, I didn't know that. So, but. He shouldn't have done that. I don't know. But I guess he couldn't have figured it. You say he still could have gotten to the bottom of it if he didn't question
I think he could have. Yeah. I mean, I think if he wanted to, he could have. Yeah.
How does anybody get to the bottom of anything?
Right.
Like, crime's committed. They're not going to go to the criminal and be like, listen, just tell us.
Yeah, we won't put you in prison, but
they're not going to say anything, but they find out somehow.
Well, because the bigger question here, again, is that...
But there's, like, fingerprints. Like, you'd have to find, like, you'd have to, like, do, like, CSI work in the dugout. Good.
I don't think the commissioner really wanted to deal with this. He wanted to do an investigation to appease the general public, but I don't think he really wanted to find anything out, and he didn't really want to solve it.
Well, like Joseph said, then isn't it easier just to say this is not based on anything? You know, don't listen to the guy. Some people would be upset, but not nearly as much as they are now.
Well,
and if you're that guy who knows that,
I don't know.
The big question is why don't you go to the Astros and say, I'm going to spill the beans? I want something.
Oh, you're the player, you mean?
Yeah, if you're the player. He didn't play for me anymore.
Right.
So go to the Astros and say, listen, I want $1 million every year for the rest of my life. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised. I wonder if he tried it and they said, I bet you don't do it. He's like,
I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't really know.
Or maybe he did they?
But what I'm saying is, a lot of people in the front office and like the little data people, they knew this too because they're providing probably with a lot of information.
Sure, they were.
So, from like the electronics they used to gather. They had to provide.
The players didn't decide this and get all the gear together and they had help. So
I think Altuve went to local Best Buy.
Yeah, people would have talked in the organization and. Like you said, maybe the commissioner incentivizes some talking to other people. Like, I'll pay you, I don't know, whatever.
Oh, you mean if he did it without questioning the players, he could have figured it out that way? Oh, yeah.
There's ways to do it.
Well, see,
then he said something like, well, I didn't want to spend the players because we'd get backlash from the players' union, there'd be lawsuits and all that stuff.
It sounds like the players' union, what? It looks like the players are the ones who are most upset. That's why I feel like the players' union would be...
Well, they're going to fight punishment from that angle. But still, it doesn't matter, though. You still do it. You know what I'm saying?
So there was no union back when Rose was banned for life to fight that?
Well, but he wasn't part of the union.
Right, but there's no coaches aren't involved in any type of union?
No, there's no coaches union. They're part of management, so they're not part of the union. Yeah. But see, this brings up another good point, which will help us transition to the NFL discussion, is that, see, Manfred doesn't have the same power that Goodell has in the NFL. See, Goodell, under the last collective bargaining agreement, has power of judge, jury, and executioner. In other words, the Players Association can't do anything. Manfred doesn't have that, so he had to go to the Players Association. If this was Goodell, he could have said, you're suspended for how many times, and that would have been the end of it. You know, because he has that power.
Yeah, I feel like the baseball coach could have said that. What?
He doesn't have the power. He doesn't have the power to discipline players unless the Players Association is on board with it.
Okay. But he could have posed it, is my point.
Could have posed it. Sure he could have. But it has to be negotiation with the Players Association to determine if that penalty is warranted. And the Players Association, remember you talked about the player. The Players Association is made up of all the players. They're the ones who pay the dues and are part of the union. But when I say Players Association, there's an executive committee that handles all the negotiations. And those guys are either former players or lawyers. So they're not
actual current players.
No, because you have an executive committee that deals with that, and then they bring the issues to the players, and the players vote on it.
Doesn't each team have a main
rep? Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
But if they were to bring anything to the players themselves, it sounds like they all would be in favor of a punishment for those. But
guys. They must not have done that. See, there must not have been any of that.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If the commissioner would have posed it, the executive board of the Players Committee would have had to bring it to the players, and then they would have had a vote, and it would have went through.
And you made an excellent point, which is a great point, is that if this would have been a serious investigation, what the commissioner should have said was, hey, let's go to all 32 player reps, and let's get their vote on, should these guys be suspended if we find wrongdoing? And if a majority of them said yes, there should have been no immunity, right? But they didn't do that. They didn't take the steps necessary to really dig deep enough to find the proper way to go about handling it.
Another good way to punish him, which I saw on Instagram, I think, somebody, certified account, somebody, whatever you call it, posted. But interesting. I don't know if this was the verbatim what they said, but basically this interesting idea. Forget about suspending the players for life. Forget about suspending them at all. Forget about vacating anything. Have the Astros play this upcoming season and maybe subsequent seasons where they have no chance of making the playoffs. Their record means nothing. make them play the whole year, and then Joseph brought up a good point, and then their stats mean nothing. This year counts as a season, though, so their career averages, it affects their career averages, so it counts as a season, but anything they do, in other words...
the stats are not recorded.
They're not recorded, so it's just zeros across the board for this season. So that's my point, but it hurts your career average then, because you take the years, you take the seasons you played and divide...
Not your career averages, but... I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm
saying?
saying?
As a season.
You count it as a season, but there's zeros across...
But that still doesn't really affect what you're saying, though.
How does that not affect what I'm saying? Look,
if you're not going to record them as at bats, so it doesn't affect their average.
No, you record it as at bats. Do that.
You can't do that.
All right, fine, forget it. Just take it out then. Okay, fine. No stats.
The only reason they're playing their games for the other teams to play.
Yes. Exactly. But what you force them to do is you can't have the main stars sit out. They have to play X amount of games. Otherwise, they might just I won't play this year. I'm taking it off you. No, you have to somehow make them play the lineup as they would typically play it. Nothing counts. Nothing matters. And see how they like
as long as we're talking about crazy things to do, how about this?
It's not crazy.
How about
crazy?
No. I'm not saying crazy and like stupid. I'm just saying wild ideas of how we could punish them. What about this idea? You guys are going to laugh at this one, but what if every game they play, when they're at bat, they start with 2 outs every inning?
No, if that makes the game go quicker, and that's what they
Well,
want.
that's fine, but
you want to extend this.
Yeah, but that would hurt their stats tremendously because now you only got one shot. If the leadoff batter flies out, that's it. The other team comes up.
It would hurt their stats where if they had 2 strikes each time they were. But there's no stats recorded, so it doesn't matter. Another thing you'd have to make sure is I don't think if you did what I said, I would think that this incentive would still be there for them to try hard, right? Because the flip side might be like, well, every team that plays them is going to win because they actually don't care if they win, but they're going to want to try harder and win because it's just going to look. I don't know what would the incentive? It's just going to look bad on them if they just lose. I don't know.
Well, I think you could. Your point about vacating the title, I think, is one way to do it because in college sports. They do that all the time, right? If a player, if they find an ineligible player was used, or they find they did something wrong, they just vacate. They don't give it to somebody else, but they vacate.
It doesn't mean anything. Everybody knows Reggie Bush won.
Exactly, but that's the point. It's not to change public opinion or to change Reggie Bush's mind.
Right.
It's just for the sake of the record books.
Right.
The sanctity of the record books.
Correct. It doesn't change public opinion. It doesn't change what the guy accomplished.
It's just for 150 years from now. People go back and go, oh, the Astros never won a World Series. That's what it's for. It's not to like people at the time to hurt them. The Reggie Bush thing's ridiculous too. If you're gonna, I know it's a whole different governing body. But if you're going to take away his Heisman for something he had nothing to do with him playing on the field, and you're not going to take anything away from players who cheated while playing on the field, that's ridiculous.
No, I agree.
I saw a funny T-shirt, too, about the Astros. I was looking at the best T-shirt I could find. Saw a pretty funny T-shirt. It was Astros colors and stuff. It didn't have any official logos, but it said, knock, knock, who's there, change up. You can do that for anything too. Knock knock. Who's there? Fastball.
What was the other one about Altuve? Which or something?
Oh, there was
which pin?
These people redesigned Dr. Seuss covers based on all this, and it was
fast pitch, slow pitch.
I knew which. Fast pitch,
Altuve knew which.
Yeah, it was fast pitch, slow pitch. Altuve knew which. That's what it was.
Oh boy.
It had a little funny picture of him like shrugging.
Let's go on to talk about how the NFL is ruining their league.
Okay, let's change over to that.
Well, I think this though part of this whole thing in baseball is another sign that baseball is going downhill too.
Yeah,
everything's going downhill.
Yeah, well, baseball has a bigger problem than the NFL, and we'll get into that in another podcast. They're actually talking about changing their postseason as well. But baseball's got a bigger problem. See, baseball is more of a regional sport, and they're struggling because you have small market teams who really never can compete, okay? And like somebody made a comment on one of the sports shows is that if you're a Yankee, or that's probably not a good analogy. If you're a Pirates fan, for example, and your team's out of it, okay, are you going to really be interested in a late September game between the Yankees and Indians for the right to win that playoff spot? No, you're not, okay? But in the NFL, if your team is 3-12 and Week 17 rolls around, you're still going to watch all the NFL games because you're an NFL fan. You're a football fan. So football has a national following, and they're a much stronger league. You know what I'm trying to say?
Okay, so you're just saying that basically the NFL has more of a national following than baseball.
And baseball needs to find ways to improve their product, whereas football really doesn't.
Even if you wanted to say, though, that baseball has the same amount of national following, to your point, if you're a fan of a team, you're a Pirates fan, you might, and they're out of it. You might be like, I don't need to watch the last 10 games. I watched 152 of them up to this point.
Yeah,
yes. If you're a Jaguars fan and they're going into week 17 and they suck, you can probably watch it because you only get 16 games every year. It's going to be a whole other year until you get another 16.
Could be. All right, let's talk about the NFL. So the NFL has floated a proposal. I say floated. Let's step back. The NFL's collective bargaining agreement was signed in 2011, and it was a 10-year agreement, which means that this coming season, 2020, will be the last year of the current agreement. So they've been negotiating as late as early as last year with the NFL Players Association to try to get a new deal in place so that they don't get to what they got last time, where you have a lockout and you're in a last-minute thing and there's all this crap going on.
Missed the Hall of Fame game.
Right, missed the Hall of Fame game, all that stuff. All right. So the NFL has put a proposal together that the owners have voted on and approved and sent to the Players Association, which calls for a 17-game schedule instead of a 16-game schedule, reducing the preseason by 1 game, so they don't only play 3 preseason games, expanding the playoffs and adding a 7th team another team in each conference. So you would eliminate. There would no longer be 2 byes. Only the team with the best record would have a bye. The other 6 teams would all play each other on Wild Card weekend. So you'd have 3 playoff games on Saturday and Sunday the first weekend. And of course, the revenue. This would increase revenue. It would put, like, I think over the course of the 10-year agreement, it would put $5 billion more into the players' pockets as far as salaries. They would increase the minimum salary would go up for every classification of player. So what's your thoughts about that?
Well, the playoff and the games thing is ridiculous. Like, especially the playoffs, because you're just allowing before you know you're going to be the NBA, where you have the Bobcats, or they're not the Bobcats anymore. You have some team that's under 500 making the playoffs, and some. It's different, obviously, but they don't deserve to make the playoffs.
One this year tournament, everybody gets in.
Right.
It's a March Madness tournament.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about the NFL that makes it so attractive. You play once a week, so every Sunday is like a big event, and it's hard to make the playoffs. Like you have teams, a lot of years, teams with 10 wins don't make it. Just because you get to have 10 wins doesn't mean you should automatically make the playoffs. Patriots won 11 games that 1 year, didn't make the playoffs. So in 08 when Brady got hurt.
Well,
who won the division? The Jets?
Dolphins
won the division.
Wait a second. In 2008, the Dolphins, what was the record?
11-5.
11-5.
Same as the Patriots,
They
they
won
the tiebreaker.
Where did they do the playoffs?
The Dolphins, the Ravens beat them.
Yeah.
Where at?
In Miami.
Well, that was that game. Yeah. Okay.
All right, but here's just for the sake of the discussion, had this new playoff scenario been in place this past season, the 7th team in the NFC would have been the Rams. They were 9-7, and the 7th team in the AFC would have been the Steelers. They were 8-8 and had basically no quarterback.
Yeah.
So they should not have been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right.
They weren't They don't deserve to make
right.
the playoffs.
So I mean, I think it waters down the playoffs. It waters down the league. I mean, I just don't see the reasoning. I know why they want to do it. All right, they want more money. Okay. But see, another thing, the NFL right now in another 3 weeks has to go to the networks to renegotiate their TV contract. So they want to offer the networks more inventory, right? Hey, we're going to have 2 extra playoff games. We're going to have better games at the end of the year. And the networks want to soak that up because they know it's the number 1 rated product out there. And they can sell more advertising in it. So it's all about money. But I think ultimately, like Joseph said, you're going to get in a situation where it becomes a watered down product. You're going to have teams in the playoffs that really shouldn't be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And right now, I think the NFL is the only league right now that you can say, hey, everybody that gets in the playoffs deserves to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right?
I think everyone understands that. I think the NFL themselves knows this waters down the playoffs. They just don't care.
They don't care. That's right.
I mean, I don't think there's a question of does it or does it not water it down. I think everyone pretty much is on board with the fact that it waters down the playoffs. It's the definition of watering something down. You're adding more of something to dilute the thing.
Right.
But they just don't care. So I don't know what your point would be to dissuade them. It's not like, oh, you're right, we are watering down.
Well, but the interesting thing is the players are not I don't think they're opposed to the extra playoff team. They're fighting on the 17-game season. They don't want another game.
Yeah, but if they want the extra money, that's what they have to do. So decide what they want more.
That's right. Well, I mean, I think they're worried about their.
I know they're worried about it. I'm just saying, don't. But what they'd get if they had to do this, what they would be getting in return is more money.
Right.
So what do they care more about? I'm sure if they told the NFL, we don't care if you up our percentage of the salary, we don't want to play 17, the NFL would say fine.
Yeah.
Probably.
No, they want.
But my point is,
they want 18 eventually.
Yeah.
But my point is, the reason this may go through though is because the players realize they're getting more money out of it.
Right.
Which means they must not care that much about their health and their safety.
Well,
so that's the point, right? The health and safety thing.
Well, that's true. But you see, here's the issue you've got, and this is the same in any sport, is the Players Association has an executive council, and then they have the 32 player reps, and they vote on. Once they vote for it, they have to bring it to the entire membership for voting.
And this executive council also includes like lawyers and people who aren't players?
Yes. And then you've got the 32 player reps who vote on it. And then, but it's got to be ratified by the entire players in the league.
Like 2,000.
It's like 2,000 players who are paying dues to the Players Association.
Can you not pay dues and not be part of it?
No. So, here's the issue. The only people you hear from on the reports are the J.J. Watts of the world, the Richard Shermans of the world, all the guys,
the reps of the team, right?
all the guys that are reps and making a lot of money. But let's say you're a third-year linebacker on a team, and you're a special teams player, and you're making the minimum salary. If you vote for this thing, 17 games doesn't mean anything to you, right? But you're going to get a whole lot more money on minimum salary. See, so that it's an uneven. You're talking about an uneven base.
Well, then obviously it's going to go in favor of the Stars because they're the ones. No one's making that third-year special teams linebacker the representative from his team. So that's the final voice. Yeah, it's going to be the Stars.
Yeah, but the question then comes into play is that do you think that the stars of the league have a responsibility to look out for the young guys that are going to be the future of the league?
Supposedly, if they're the representative of the team, aren't they supposed to take the collective decision from the team? They don't have to. They could always be like, well, that's their decision. But
they should. That's correct. But I think you're going to have more players that are in favor of this than you are players who are not in favor of it.
In favor of expanding.
Of this new deal, right.
Because there's a lot of stuff in the deal that goes beyond the playoffs.
Right.
Because you're saying the majority of the 2,000 players are not stars.
Right. And they're going to make a whole lot more money. I mean, the minimum salaries are going to go up.
The reason is, and you said this the other day, you explained it, was basically that the owners want to offer the players a bigger percentage of the revenue.
Which is what they want.
Which is what they want, but they don't want to give up any of their own money to do it.
Right.
So by adding these extra games, they'll be able to basically say, all right, we're going to keep making money like we have been, but you get some extra money because of all these extra games.
Because the
pot's bigger, right.
And they'll probably make more themselves too, the owners.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's how they're getting around it.
So that's my point. So the players just said, no, we don't care, it's okay. Then they'd say, about the money thing, then the owners would have no reason to expand it.
Yeah, but then you're not going to have an agreement because then the players are going to say, hey, we want more money, but we don't want to expand. And then the owners are going to say, no, we don't want to do that.
That's what I'm saying. If the players said, listen, we don't want the 17 games, but it's okay, we understand we can't get more money, then leave our money where we're at. Then if the owners try to say we're going to expand, say why? You're getting the same.
Well,
there's no reason.
I mean,
it sounds like the impetus to expand the season is because the owners need to make up their money to pay the players.
And partly like you were saying about the TV, they can charge more for their product. They're offering more games, more playoff games.
Right. And there's other things in this agreement that we haven't even talked about that are as important to the players as well. I read where one of the stipulations of this new agreement is that there'll be no more testing for marijuana. Okay. Which obviously probably should happen because it's legal in 4 or 5 states now. Okay, so that's going to go away. Yeah. Also, I read where Goodell's going to lose some of his power. Okay, which the players wanted. They didn't want him being the judge, jury, and executioner.
See, what side does he get to be on? The owner's side? He's not an owner or a player. So what side?
He's got to be on the owner's side because the owner is hiring.
Okay,
his job.
Why is he going to go along with this if he's on the owner's side? The owners,
he's got to. He has no choice. The owners voted on it. He's an employee of the owners.
Oh, okay.
Okay, basically, he has no say in it. Okay.
Yeah, if he's like, I don't like it, they'll say, we'll get a new commissioner.
Screw, we'll get a new commissioner. Right. All right. So that's, and then the third thing that's part of it, which I think is important to players, is increased health care benefits when they retire. Okay, for them and for players who have already retired.
That's kind of a wash, right? Because if you're playing more games, you probably need more health care. You're getting more, but it's kind of equal out to when you
retire, though.
After you retire.
But I guess isn't the point is if you're playing more games in your career now because there's 17 games, the wear and tear of your body is greater. Now you're getting better coverage, but the wear and tear of your body, you're going to need that coverage more. So
yeah, but I think you're looking at it from an acute standpoint of injuries. They're looking at it from 25 years from now when I'm 50 years old. If I end up with some sort of brain problem or some sort of other problem, I want a good enough healthcare coverage.
But my point is, couldn't you make the argument that you're more likely to have that if you play more games?
Yeah, but if you have a 10-year career, you're only going to play 10 more games
It's like another season.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good.
I'm not saying I agree with what I'm posing. I'm just saying, like, couldn't you look at that being a wash?
You could.
Like, we'll give you more health insurance. Where it's like, yeah, we're going to need more health insurance.
Yeah, you could.
So you're just like meeting our needs. You're not giving us anything.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I think.
Well, this combined with NFL's, which they've been doing this for a long time, like the new rules about hitting QBs and like hitting anybody and coverage and kickoff, and eventually the NFL is going to be like it's going to be like a peewee game. You put the ball on the 20-yard line. There's no kickoffs. you have to like the quarterback will have flags on his waist. They'll be fancy flags. They won't be like flag football flags, but they'll be fancy. You have to pull a flag and he's down. Mm-hmm. There would be
for the quarterback for a sack.
For a sack.
No punts.
There'll be no punt.
The coach is a good little punt formation or punt action with his leg.
Yeah. There would be and they'll be playing like 20 games and
Super Bowl will be in March in London.
And everybody would be TikToking it from the stands. And they'll love it. And there'll be like jumbotrons and like holograms in the breezeway and like all the little millennials were like
I'll tell you what I think you're going to see eventually.
That's what it's going to be.
Is the NFL is going to adopt this XFL kickoff rule. Have you seen
but they will.
Yeah, they will. They'll adopt that pretty soon because I think that's one way you can prevent the violence on the kickoffs. I guess if that's what you want to do.
How about this conspiracy theory? What if the NFL is the money behind the XFL? And they're going to keep it afloat, and they're going to use it as a test platform for all their things. So if they want a new rule, they'll put in the XFL, see if the general population hates it, or if they love it, and they'll use it.
That's not a bad idea.
But no one's going to know that that's what's being.
That's not a bad idea at all. It could very well be what's happening. So,
but if that's the case, why wouldn't they do that with all these other leagues that failed? That's the same opportunity.
They're not gonna.
So what's our bottom line on this? Are we in agreement with the new NFL? Do we think it's?
I disagree. I like the 16 games, and I like the playoff format the way it was.
I agree with that. I disagree, but my point is, I think everyone.
And those are the two main things that, as fans,
right?
Yeah. You don't really.
They don't affect the fans.
Yeah, I'm not a player, so that's
right. And I don't. Whatever the players think, I don't know. Like you said, I don't. If they think something is best for them, who am I to say? I'm not a player.
Right.
But from the fans' point of view, yeah. But I don't think. Are there any? I'm sure there's some fans. Are there any fans who think this is a good idea? Like, forget just from the fan standpoint. Do any fans think?
Well, I mean, I guess if you're like a Steelers fan, this past year you'd have liked your team to make the playoffs, and if you don't really care about do they really deserve to make it or not.
Wouldn't you think there would be like a period of time until this really becomes like the new normal, where like if your team makes the playoffs, you're gonna be like, yeah, but we really didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I would think so.
After a period of time, it would become the new normal, and it'd be like, yeah, but for a period of time, it's gonna be like, yeah, we made it, but we were the seventh team.
That's what I'm saying, but you got to cut it off somewhere. 10 years from now, what if they're like? Some team also went 8-8 and didn't make it. Why don't let them in? Let's make it a 16-team playoff.
I'm sure they had to expand the playoffs at some point in the NFL's history or do something.
Oh, yeah, they've done it, yeah.
So my point is, after they initially did, I'm sure people were like, well, this is bad.
Right.
Like, we weren't really a playoff team.
Right.
And that became the new normal. Now, if you're one of the six, you're considered yourself a real playoff team. So it probably eventually, my point is, this should become the new normal, I guess, right? It happened that way when they expanded in the past.
I think they went to 6 playoff teams. It used to be just 4 playoff teams. It used to be 3 division winners and 1 wild card.
That's kind of like that. That's
and
cool.
then
you're not guaranteed if you win your division.
But that was the old division
winners.
It used to be 3 divisions, right? Yeah. And then in 1989, I think they expanded to 6 teams. They went to 3 division winners and 3 wild cards. But then they changed the divisions up in 2002, and they adjusted it. Yeah.
But when they expanded to 6, though, what year was that?
I think it was 89.
Okay. What was the talk? Were you thinking like, oh, this is diluting the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think I really had much thought about it. I mean, I didn't really think much about it.
If you live in that time, how could you not think it was watering down the playoffs? Just adding more teams. So this should probably be the same thing.
Well, I think
25 years from now, people will probably not even consider this.
I think you bring up a good point that kind of puts the cap on this discussion. Is that we just talked about the NBA, how watered down it is, but does anybody really care? In other words, like when the season's over and they crown an NBA champion, you don't hear much talk about, well, that 8th seeded team really should have. In other words, fans are going to end up being okay with it.
That's a little different because the 8th seeded team, even this like 5 through 8, have no chance.
Right.
Really. I mean, it's a 4-game series, so the team that's better is going to win 99% of the time. In the NFL, under this new format, it's a 1 game.
Right.
if they were to use it this past year, the Chiefs would have not gotten a bye.
Right.
They'd had to play the Steelers.
Right.
Steelers can beat the Chiefs. I mean,
Right.
why not? And then their whole Super Bowl season's ruined because they had to play 8-8 Steelers.
And here's the thing: it's not like the Steelers are going to win the Super Bowl, but even if the Steelers lose the next week, they've changed the course of the playoffs.
Right.
The Chiefs are no longer winning.
Well, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I mean, I remember back in 2000. I think it was the 2010 season, the year that the Saints were the defending Super Bowl champions. They had to go to Seattle. They were the wild card, the Saints, and they had to go to Seattle. Seattle was 7-9, but won the division, and the Seahawks beat them. That was the beast mode run, you know. So it could happen. I mean, it's a one game. Anything can happen in one game, you know, as opposed to a 5-game series or 7-game series.
But I mean, it's fun to talk about. But I mean, no one can change what they decide.
No, we're not going to change it.
Unless like 90% of NFL fans get together and like boycott it or something.
Which they're not going to do.
Which is not going to happen.
Yeah,
so.
no, it's not going to happen.
So
all right,
great.
good discussion. So,
but the NFL could very well. I'm very open to the idea that the NFL would be unwatchable within the next 10 years.
That's an even bigger issue to talk about it at another podcast. Is that how is the actual game itself being destroyed?
Yeah.
Forget about how many games you play. I mean, right now, it's almost. First of all, you've got what. I mean, here's another issue which I don't want to get into today. But look at the flags they throw. All year long, they throw flags, and then in the playoffs, they don't throw any flags. Look at the Super Bowl; they barely threw a flag. I mean, there were hits on the quarterback, out of bounds, no flag, and to me, that doesn't hold the integrity of the game. If you're going to penalize somebody for something in Game 8, why are you not penalizing the same thing in the Super Bowl? Same issue.
Yeah, because I think they care more about how it looks. It looks good to throw flags in the season. You look, we're cracking down on head hits. We're cracking down on hitting, and they know it really doesn't matter. It's the regular season. I mean, but they really know that they don't want to be doing that. That's why in the Super Bowl they don't do that. How's the XFL been on flags?
I haven't really paid much attention to it. I think they're throwing flags, but not to the extent that the NFL throws them. I don't think. But
aren't they not black and white? What color are the refs? Aren't they something weird?
Oh, you mean the uniforms? Yeah, they got like red in them, and
like orange or something.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like the football. Have you seen the football?
Yeah,
it's got like
a
when you throw it, it's got like a star on the end of it.
Starburst on the end of it.
Yeah.
Well, weren't the refs? I'm getting off topic now. But weren't the refs in the AFL didn't have orange hats and orange stuff? Or am I thinking of?
the old AFL. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Off topic. I think the umpires. I think they need to go back to having AL and NL umpires. And they need to wear the hats that say AL and NL.
I'm not opposed to that. No.
Yeah.
That used to be a thing, right? They used to have umpires for each league.
Yeah, but the problem we ran into with that is the National League umpires had a different strike zone than the American League umpires.
They all have different strike zones there anyways.
Yeah, they did.
I want to have an episode too about a electronic strike zone.
Well, if you really want to talk about how to improve the game, in my view, of course, this is an old man's view of old school view, is I'd go back, I'd take out all interleague play in the NFL and the baseball. And in other words, in the NFL, just play your own conference and don't play until you get to the Super Bowl to the team.
Well, that's not. I don't hate that actually. That's not bad. You don't even see the other conference of the Super Bowl. That's not bad. I kind of like that.
No comment on that.
I think baseball though should go. I don't think they should have interleague play every week in baseball. Don't they have?
Well, that's because they changed the divisions around.
Well, change it back.
Yeah, I like that where there was 2 weeks in the summer where there was interleague play. Yeah. It was kind of like. And
then when the Mets played the Yankees, it was a huge deal. Now don't they play a separate series every other week now?
No, there's one interleague series every.
But the Yankees and the Mets play more than one series a year. Am I right?
They play two. One in Shea or one in City Field.
They always did that. It's not any different.
But see, I think in baseball, I don't like it in baseball at all. I mean, in football, you could argue, okay, it's acceptable, but I don't like it in baseball. In other words, to me, and again, I'm going from an old man's viewpoint here. To me, the World Series was always special because, like, when the Mets met the Red Sox in the World Series, they had never played each other.
It was a cool thing. It was like these leagues have never met.
Exactly.
Like, you're taking the best from this league, the best from this league.
Exactly. Now, when you have the World Series, the Astros and the Nationals, they've already played. I mean, and
necessarily.
Not necessarily, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but it's like it's not a weird sight to you to see those two teams playing each other because it could very well happen in the season.
Correct.
And I wonder. This is interesting. I wonder if you could go back and look at all the World Series matches for the last 20 years or 10 years. How many of them played each other in the regular season? Probably a good number.
Probably a good number. Yeah.
I agree with that.
So I don't know. I just think it adds a little more to the game. You know, and football would be harder to do because you got 16 teams. You'd have to play every team at least once. You'd still have to play one team because you can't play.
Football is different because you only have.
Yeah, you can't do it in football.
I would like to have an episode 2 on the Pro Bowl. That's a big thing. Football.
All right, let's do that. We'll do that.
A lot of thoughts on the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. All right.
Thank you for joining us on this episode, and look for that Pro Bowl episode.
Yeah. In fact, maybe we'll do not only the Pro Bowl. Maybe on the next episode we'll do what are our plans for improving the baseball? How would we change the game? You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know enough about it. But
Well, yeah, you know enough about it. We can do it.
You saw how much I knew about the history of the Astros cheating scandal earlier. They got granted immunity. I never knew that. Why are we even arguing should this suspend? They can't. He's probably signed something. He probably signed it away.
So this is not part of the podcast, is it?
I don't know.
It is now. We'll see you next time on the Press Box Podcast.